My belief is that many things happen in the world that God does not cause. But what God does is whenever anything happens, God goes to work to bring good from it. God doesn't cause people to die at 40. God doesn't cause automobile accidents. God doesn't cause people to lose jobs. The truth is, a lot of those things happen because people make bad choices. A lot of those things happen because other people make bad choices. Some things are just accidents. But whenever anything happens, God goes to work to bring something good from it. That's bedrock of my faith. You can't move me from that place. Of that, I am certain. You notice in that? I didn't talk anything about virgin birth or triune God or any of those kind of things, because the reality is, folks, I don't have a lot of answers in some of those areas. But there are things that I can know. In an uncertain world, if you have not stopped to examine your faith, if you have not asked questions, been pushed, struggled with uncertainty, if you hadn't been behind those doors of uncertainty and forced yourself to come out and begin to deal with it, then you have an unexamined faith. And theologians have said for years, an unexamined faith is in reality no faith. You know, many people think that Christianity is all about some set of beliefs, is all about knowing all the right answers. Folks, I want to tell you something entirely different. I want to suggest to you today that that's 180 degrees opposite of what Christianity is really about. Let's start my explanation of that by looking at a story that happened exactly 1 week after Easter. Like today, 1 week after Easter. You see, the story is about a man named Thomas. Thomas was one of the disciples, and he wasn't present in the upper room when Jesus came in the story we talked about last week, where Jesus came into the room and said, "Peace be with you," and all of the disciples were able to come out from behind the doors and they would be able to experience Easter. Thomas wasn't there. And so after Jesus left, Thomas came into the room and they said, "We've seen the Lord. The Lord has been here." And they were so excited. And Thomas, folks, spoke the truth. You remember what Thomas said? Thomas said, "Unless I put my hand in the mark of the nails, unless I put my hand in his side, I'll never believe." And the people ever since have called him Doubting Thomas. And they've talked about, how horrible that is, and doubts are terrible. Folks, let me suggest to you, Thomas was the most wonderful Christian you'll ever know. Because what Thomas did was express exactly what his doubt was. Thomas verbalized what he needed. He said, "Unless I put my fingers in the wound, unless I put my hand in his side, I'll never believe." Now, did Jesus strike him dead? No. Did Jesus say, "You are a horrible, terrible person, get out of my church"? No. What did Jesus do? A week later, Jesus shows up and walks over to him and says, "Thomas, here it is. Thomas, put your hand in my side. If that's what you need, Thomas, okay, here it is." You see, Thomas expressed what he needed to believe, and Jesus said, "Great, then here it is." Jesus didn't get upset because Thomas had questions. Jesus didn't get upset because Thomas had doubts. Jesus simply said, "Thank you for being clear about what you need." And Jesus came and answered his question. Folks, being a Christian is not about having all the answers. Being a Christian is not being afraid to ask the questions, to say, I don't know. I don't understand. God, I really need this. The questions are the key. The questions are what get you out from behind the doors. The questions are what make your faith alive and real. Don't be afraid of the questions. Earlier in his ministry, Jesus had said this so clearly. In Matthew's Gospel, the 7th chapter and the 7th verse, Jesus says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. Do you hear what Jesus is saying? Don't be afraid of the questions. Don't be afraid of the uncertainty. Don't feel like you're less than a good Christian because you don't have all the answers. Start with the questions. Start with where you're struggling, with where you need insight, with what you need, and Jesus will help you. If you sit there behind those doors, never expressing your doubts, never expressing the questions, never seeking help, then Jesus' hands are tied. He can't come and show you what you need to know. Don't be afraid of the questions. Ask, and it will be given. Folks, you need to hear that. You're going to need to verbalize your questions. I'm not talking, and I don't think Jesus was talking in that setting, about asking in prayer. I think Jesus was talking about exactly the situation that Thomas had. You remember, Thomas didn't make that thing of, I won't believe unless I see the marks. He didn't make that in prayer. He said that to the disciples. He said that to that small group of friends who were struggling to understand what being a Christ follower was. Folks, that's where you ask. We're talking today about signing up for life groups. That's one of the reasons life groups are so important, is that in that setting of a small group of people who know you and love you and trust you, you can express your questions. And together, like they showed in the drama, you go on that journey together of experiencing enlightenment and movement. But it will never happen if you don't have the courage to come out from behind the door of doubt and ask the question. Say what it is that you worry about. Say what it is that you don't understand, even if that seems to be the most sacred cow of all Christianity. God is not afraid of your questions, and your friends have exactly the same questions. So ask them that the answers might be given. Get involved in God's Word. That's where you seek. You ask in life groups. You ask with fellow Christians, those who are struggling with you. You seek in God's Word by being involved in reading and studying the Bible. And then you knock. You knock on the door of Jesus. Because when you do, Jesus will open the door and you'll discover the greatest truth that He has to offer. And that is that Christianity, being a follower of Jesus Christ, is not about a bunch of questions, a bunch of answers, a bunch of thoughts. Being a follower of Jesus Christ is about a personal relationship. It's about being friends with Jesus. And when Jesus comes into your life, when you knock on that door and Jesus comes into your life, then suddenly the questions are important. You'd like to know the answers, but they're not vital. They're not about the core of your existence. They're not about your salvation, because all of that is wrapped up in your relationship with Jesus. Jesus says, knock on the door and be my friend. Come and be in relationship with me. And in the midst of an uncertain world, a world that causes you to scratch your head and wonder, I will be with you and will find the answers you need. Ask seek, knock, and the door will be opened to you, and you will find the answers that God has for you. Will you do it? Or will you stay behind the doors, hiding your uncertainty? The choice is yours.